Welcome to Stay or Go, Immigration in Miami, exploring how immigration inspires worry and hope in South Florida. I'm your host, Giancarlo Diago Cevallos, and today we'll be discussing how immigration affects local minds. With recent changes in immigration policy by the current administration, including the attempted removal of the temporary protection status, South Florida is uniquely focused on this issue, being full of immigrant communities. Today we welcome Daniela Dieppa, the president of the College Republicans at FIU Student Organization. Daniela, thanks for being here today.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Of course. Well, wow, you did a very great job. So, my name's Daniela Dieppa. I'm the president of College Republicans, but beside a Republican, I'm a Cuban-American. I'm a political science student. I'm studying political science and international relations here at FIU. And like you mentioned, I am a Miami native, so this is a topic that can hit close to home.
So what is your stance on immigration?
Okay, so if we're just talking immigration, I love legal migration. I love when people come do the right way. As a Republican, who would have thought, right? But I always take the very stance of nobody hates illegal immigration more than legal immigrants. I've had a lot of contacts. Today I just had an anecdote of a gentleman who explains to me that his parents are Salvadorian and did it the legal way, and that they're super, super pro-legal migration, pro-deportation because of that. So I love immigration when done the right way.
So you mentioned there being resentment among some legal immigrants about illegal immigration. Could you expand on why they feel that way?
Of course, 100%. It feels kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember, we were kids and somebody would kind of cut in the line. We were like, why is he cutting in the line? We'd be like, teacher, you know? That's kind of how it feels. It's just kind of a spit in the face to everybody who did it the legal way. It's kind of a spit in the face to everybody waited all the years that they had to wait, did all the money, the progress, the pain, the suffering that they had to go through for the immigration. So for somebody, just because they might have a geographical advantage, which is certainly what it is, to just cut the line like that is kind of disrespectful in a way. A lot of them ask themselves the question, well, why did I do all of the things that I had to do if somebody was just going to cut the line, right? So, and it's just worry for safety, for just everything, to be honest.
What do you think of worries of over-immigration? Is that something you've ever thought about?
That is something I've thought about. That's actually something we coincidentally talked about my peers. Before I continue, I would just like to point out Republicans are a monolith. So I find myself arguing with Republicans more actually than I do with other people, because I feel like something that distinguishes us as right-wingers is being able to agree to disagree, correct? So over immigration is something that we have thought about. I have planted my question. It's not necessarily just so much about over immigration. It's just I am worried, like, for example, companies firing American workers, or not even American workers, but legal residents, legal citizens of the US to favor foreign, which I have heard there have been certain cases about that I would be kind of against that. But at the end of the day, if they're coming here legally, they're proving that they're going to help the country, they're going to better the country, they're actually going to contribute instead of drain, I'm all for it.
So you've mentioned some worries when it comes to illegal immigration and over-immigration, but you've also mentioned that immigrants can be a good force for the country. Could you expand more on why you think that immigration can help a country?
Of course, 100%. I feel like a lot of people, for example, they tend to idolize, for example, the European Union and specifically Nordic countries and things of the sort. But even us as Americans, or if you have an American passport, if you want to move to any of these countries, you have to prove you have a certain amount of money in your bank account. You have to prove to me you're in and out. You have to prove to me that you're going to sustain yourself if you're there for a long time. You have to prove that you're not there to live off of the government. And another big thing is that they attract professionals. Like, if you're going to attract professionals from around the world, doctors, engineers, architects, or maybe not even college educated, plumbers, electricians, blue collar, that could be a very good thing for the country, because you're, again, having a brain drain, but in reverse, you're attracting the brain, right? So that's something that could genuinely help the country, especially the diversity of different cultures and things of the sort. I feel like where at least I myself as a Republican, or a lot of Republicans kind of just get sticky with it, is in two things: when it's illegal and when it's forced.
All right, thank you. Now we will take a brief pause and we will come back after a short break. Welcome back to Stay or Go, Migration in Miami, exploring how immigration inspires worry and hope in South Florida. We are continuing our talk with Daniela Dieppa about immigration. So, continuing on with the questions, how did you come about your political opinions and your stances?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question. If you feel like I'm tapping too much, tap me. But I actually went to a very liberal high school. I was very socially, my environments were very liberal, but at home I was very conservative. So I kind of just adapted the centrist positions for a while out of survival. But I was always kind of right-leaning, right? I started becoming a lot more Republican. I'm not an extremist, but Republican. Once I got to college, once I got to university, which is kind of ironic for a lot of people, it tends to happen the opposite. They got more liberal when they got to college. Like for me, I got more conservative as I went to college. I started caring a lot more about politics because I was originally not so much into politics. I was a STEM person until I did a complete 180 and decided to go into law and politics. So completely changed. And I just started to actually look into a lot of what I believed, do a lot of self-reflection. Why do I believe this? And I encourage everybody to do the same, no matter where you stand on the spectrum, taking out Republican and Democrat for a second, just ideology. Why do you believe what you believe, right? Is it just emotion? Am I just letting myself get carried away? Correct? Because as Americans, we tend to think a lot about Republican, Democrat, but we tend to miss the very bigger picture because today Republican and Democrat has become very subjective, right? So for me, I consider myself before Republican because at the day of tomorrow, I feel like the Republican Party doesn't represent me anymore. I'm no longer a Republican. I consider myself a right-winger, a conservative before that, right? So, and the way I just came about that is like that. I just started reading, I started self-analyzing myself, and I was like, this doesn't make sense, or this makes more sense, and that's how I reached the way that I did.
So, when it comes to your political opinions about immigration or otherwise, how much do you think of that is what you learned from your community versus what you learned through your own self-reflection?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really good question. You should open an extra podcast one day. I think it's a mix of both, especially I feel like I really bring a unique perspective in a way as a right-wing Hispanic, right? Because a lot of people have tried to play the identity card with me before. We're like, how can you be against immigration? I'm not against immigration, illegal immigration, if you're like Hispanic. And it's like, first of all, excuse me. And second of all, that really doesn't have a lot to do with that. A lot of people try to put us in a box when we're not. When it comes to Hispanic, you vote this way or that way. So my community had a very big impact in a way of humanizing it. I do not agree when people dehumanize illegal immigrants. They're still human beings. There's a respect that deserve human rights and everything of the sort that any other citizen would. Where we kind of diverge is in the sense of if they deserve to be in this country, especially if you started off on the wrong foot, right? But it's a mix of both, my own self-reflection, the media, which, watch out in case you're not just always consuming an echo chamber, the media, just reading, and as well as my own community. It'll help me have both sides, I feel logical side. I felt a lot more logical once I started getting right-wing. Not saying that left-wingers are illogical, but for me, in my personal case, as I got more right-wing, I felt myself get more logical, as well as my community did help me see the humanity side of the subject as well.
So while no group is a monolith, it is also true that Hispanic immigrants or descendants of Hispanic immigrants in the United States tend to be more on the liberal side, despite, of course, the fact that no one comes from a country where one side dominates like that, because obviously Hispanic immigrants do not come from countries that are overwhelmingly liberal. So what do you think of the fact that Hispanic immigrant communities or their descendants in the United States do tend to be liberal over the other side?
I'm a conservative, but the reason that I am conservative is because I inherently believe in freedom of speech, the freedom of right, life, pursuit of happiness, private property. So as long as I don't have issues with people with different political opinions. I have issues with extremism, and that's on both sides, correct? I feel like a lot of people, especially in an American way, Hispanics, a lot of Hispanic cultures, especially depending on the country and the region of said country that you're from, are actually a lot more conservative than Americans expected. There's, especially this last election, it was kind of a shift, particularly also us, amongst Hispanic men as well. Actually.
Sorry, just to clarify, which election?
This last election, 2024, Trump v. Kamala.
Right.
Right. So a lot of Hispanic men, actually, when you check out the statistics, actually voted more for a right-wing side than a liberal side, right? So there's been kind of a shift there in a way. But even then, if there's still a Hispanic liberal hearing me out, I still love you, I still respect you, because I feel like that's the very foundation of what makes this country this country. So I don't have any personal qualms with somebody having different personal opinions, but it is that kind of thing that Hispanic culture objectively, in a lot of aspects, is actually more conservative than people perceive.
All right. So what do you think of the current American administration's performance and their accent specifically on the topic of immigration?
Particularly on the generally speaking, on the administration, I was never MAGA. I was never a super MAGA person. I'm a Republican, but I preferred other candidates actually over Trump. I'm not particularly always 100% happy with everything that you're doing it, but from a conservative perspective. If you want me to give an example, for example, the big beautiful bill thing, that is something that worries me, as well as, for example, something that I'm personally a pro-life person. I personally disagree with, let's say, a minor having access to gender transitioning hormones or procedures. That's something that I'm kind of happy about. I expected there be a stronger crackdown on that, and there wasn't. I understand that politics is a tug-of-rope thing, so they aren't able to, but that's something I'm a little happy about. But specifically on illegal immigration, if I'm not mistaken, he even scaled back a little on the farmers thing, that he basically mentioned that they wouldn't stop getting workers as much as they're doing that. This is something that's very polarized. This is something that's very emotional. For example, you'll tend to see news articles that say, oh, this person got deported because they ran a red light. They got deported because they're an illegal immigrant. Running a red light was the action that triggered the interaction between the officer or law enforcement entity between the individual, right? So me personally, I feel like they're doing what they promised thus far. It's something that I don't want them to become a witch hunt either, or like a blood hunt either. Like I mentioned, I still value respect over everything else. But it is something that at the end of the day, our country has borders, our country has laws, and you have to follow them.
All right, that's the end of the questions. Do you have any closing comments or remarks you'd like to make?
Guys, please touch grass. Please go outside. Please talk to people. Don't let yourself, it's very easy to fall into an extremism, a slippery slope of, well, liberals are like this, and Republicans are like this, and like if you tune into CNN, they'll tell you, oh, Republicans are fascists that want to take your rights away, and then you tune into Fox News, and they'll say Democrats are communists that want to take your rights away, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, wouldn't it just be easier for them to work together if they all just want to take their rights away, you know? But it's like your average citizen, you would realize you actually agree on a lot more than you realize if you just communicated, if you spoke with one another. Discussion and debate is what is going to get us forward. Political polarization is just going to destroy us. Please prove George Washington wrong. Thank you.
All right, Daniela, thanks for your time here in discussing immigration in South Florida.
Of course, thank you so much.
All right, Flora, thanks for your time being here for this interview. Thanks for listening to Stay or Go, Immigration in South Florida. I'm your host, Giancarlo Diago Cevallos, signing out.